Kai from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, here with Danny Garland, vocalist and bass player of what I would call a fascinatingly eclectic rock band, Phoxjaw. Danny, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. It's nice.
Brilliant. What have you been doing, I guess, other than building towards a new album release over the last few months of a pandemic-stricken world?
I've been being very creative. We've been writing the second album and other bits as well. Me and Josh have been extremely creative. I've got some new toys. I got a Sub Fatty, a Moog. Okay. So I've been writing a lot of stuff on that, and I'm a big fan of bands like Rush and Yes, and I love that kind of 70s analog prog sound. So I think you might hear a bit of that on album 2.
Are you Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, like the idea for album 2, I think it's going to go a lot more progressive. It's just quite cool.
It's kind of exciting, particularly as obviously it's still so early days. So yeah, it seems to have gone one of two ways during lockdown periods for bands. Either been, as you say, in your case, super working on new music and using that time when you're not gigging to get music down, or because you can't, I guess, work together, practice, perhaps go out as much. I mean, at least you couldn't, that you end up just almost sinking. But obviously that's not been the case for you fellas.
No, we're extremely, we're real workers, you know, we're working ants, you know, we're like a colony of ants. We're always ready to lift the heaviest next thing. And it's kind of how we work, you know. It's like, if there's any challenge thrown in the way, we want to move it out of the way, you know. Like this to us was, it's a strange situation to be in, but we looked at it as like, okay, we can't go out and play shows, but we can write loads of music. So when it comes around to recording the second album, we want to have like 50 songs, you know, like, so we make the best album we can. Do you know what I mean? For album 2.
And got a load of stuff just sitting on the side, I guess, if you ever want to do special editions and re-releases and demos and EPs and stuff, I guess it's all there.
Absolutely. Like, I'm a huge fan of bands that do split records as well. Like, for example, like Full of Hell and Mersbow did their record, and there's a few other bands I can't think off the top of my head, but like the idea of 2 bands coming together and making an album. We've got a few ideas of some bands we'd like to work with as well with that. But that's something else we're also talking and working on.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's fascinating. It's interesting because bands like Phoxjaw, they're kind of the reason why we even started a website a couple of years ago. And it's a band, to be honest, that I wasn't aware of you before your music came our way for a review. And it's like, sweet, cool, check that out, put it on. And it turns out to be something that is literally brilliant, you know, beyond brilliant, impactful, impressive listens of 2020. The question for you is, do you feel like you've got something special with the album Royal Swan?
Yeah. It's I'm a bit of a nutcase when it comes to my music. I'm never really like, I mean, I'm proud of the work I've done and everything, but I'm so analytical about everything in my life. You know, everything's got to be. I'm very OCD. I'm very over the top about things. It's like everything's got to be so in a certain way. So when I finish something, I will listen back and I will pick it to pieces. Oh, I'm not happy with that bit. That guitar tone wasn't right. You know what I mean? Even though I'm super proud of the Royal Swan, I think it's probably the best bit of work I've ever done. It covers so much genres as well in styles. It's like, I don't think there's a rock album like it that's come out in a while, which I think is quite refreshing. But yeah, I'm the one who's always got something to say, you know.
Picking your own work apart, I mean, it comes with the territory, but you must be at this stage, I guess, almost sick to death of having to hear those tracks over and over again. You're now, 2 weeks away from, roughly less than 2 weeks away from release. Aside from the desperation just to get it out, is it just one of those things where you kind of just want it gone?
It's a strange one with this release because no one's ever been in this position where we're releasing an album and we're not touring it. So it's kind of like some of these songs we've not played as well, you know? Some of these songs were created in the moment of the album, which is what's so special about this album as well, you know, because Goodbye Dinosaur and Playground for Sad Adults, we'd sort of played a lot of those songs live because we were on this live circuit for a couple of years playing relentlessly. Whereas this album was kind of like, we went to the middle of nowhere, deep in the middle of Wales, in this really beautiful place. I miss it so much. We took it for granted when we were there, really, because we were all so involved in making it, and we fought. Do you know what I mean? We weren't all happy families living in this little cottage in the middle of the country. We were not getting on, at times, and that's what making a good record is like. And it was all clearly passion. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was moments where me and Alex just had to, because there was hills, like you will see some of the pictures that will come out with, I don't know if you've seen them in the press kit where we recorded it, but proper wilderness, like nothing there, like no phone signal, 20 minutes to the nearest shop, like really at the middle of nowhere. So we would go out I'd have to go for walks because I'd be so stressed out because we weren't getting something right, or me were arguing over a guitar tone or a guitar part, like it was very intense, and we were recording to the night a lot of the time as well.
It is amazing to hear, because one of the things I've really taken away from the album is that it sounds and feels like you have given everything you could at that stage to this album. That your hearts and souls, to me, it's your hearts and souls in musical form. And it's very convincing. It sounds so sincere, and that like it took a lot of effort. Obviously, that was the case then.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that route? Like, lock yourselves away in such in the wilderness?
I think we want to put ourselves into strange scenarios as much as we can. I mean, would we go back and do it like that again? Probably not anytime soon, just because it became quite difficult. We didn't have a lot of money as well, so we were all struggling with food. I mean, there was days where toast and soup was all we ate. It really was quite silly. But I think, like, for album 2, we've got plans to do that abroad, and we want to, every time we make a record, we want to go somewhere different. And for me, the Royal Swan is a very old kind of like Sabbathy sounding to the tone of it, like old analog amps. We wanted it to sound very 70s. We recorded it like a 70s album in the way that we did it. And what better place to do that than Wales? Because Wales is where a lot of mythology comes from. They're the oldest natives to this island in the UK, and there's a lot of history there, and that's what that album has, that feel to it. And for example, the second album, the way that it's sounding, it's way more exotic sounding.
Okay.
So our plans are to go somewhere exotic, and we've got some places in mind, but whether or not that's...
When you say exotic and I think about Cornell, my mind starts going to exotic places. Oh, yeah, Morocco, places like that. Yeah, you'll have a wealth of choice depending upon, as you say, what really grabs you, I guess, from that. When you say you wouldn't, how long were you there for then?
We were there for 2 weeks at the cottage, but we were at the ranch studio for a week. And there was pre-production that was about a month. It was recording, I'd say.
2 weeks then. I can see why. A small cottage, not much money, food lacking. It's just stressful environment, to say. But it does sound very old school way of doing and recording an album. When you think of bands doing it, you start thinking back to the 80s and the 70s and stuff like that, compared to going to a top drawer studio in the center of London or something like that.
Yeah. That just doesn't interest me, Like, I'm interested in some producers that work in those kind of studios, but for me, the environment that we're recording in is an important thing, Like, don't get me wrong, I would like to do something at Rockfield or something like that at some point, just because of the history that's in that place. But, like, we did this one in Wales, the next one will be somewhere else, and the next one will be somewhere else. We want to travel while we do it as well, because that makes every album have a different feel and element to it, Like,
it sounds like your imagination is quite strong, whether it be for just writing for the album, but also how you want it to be themed or how you want it to make you feel while you're making it. And as I already said, going off Royal Swan, I feel like that comes through. So that if people are watching and are as big a fan of it as I am, well, hopefully they'll be as excited about album 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, X amount, however many you get to.
Yeah.
On that then, one of the sort of inherent themes throughout the album, I guess, is kind of the Britishness side of things. Something you kind of shine a light on, both a positive and a sort of negative way. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
It's an interesting one because we've had a few German interviews where I've been sort of answering this question. It's a hard question to answer about sounding like I'm being a nationalist, which is not the case. It's with the whole thing that was going on with Brexit, which is not as talked about as at the moment with everything else going on. That's how quickly things move on. You know what I mean? That's what we've also realised doing this album, that sometimes if you're talking about something, by the time it comes out, everyone might be talking about someone else. Do you know what I mean? But I think it was a time where I've done a lot of traveling. In my time when I'm not doing Phoxjaw, I'm traveling all the time. Do you know what I mean? I was in Finland last year, Slovakia, Austria, and I'm always going around Europe. And we had been in Europe a few times as well. Now we've been to Sweden and we've been to Munich and Germany, and we've experienced the Brexit question a lot, coming from a lot of other people in Europe. And it's been a very embarrassing time for some people in England. Do you know what I mean? So with all the confusion that's been going on in England with the separations of Europe and stuff like that, it was the message is it's to be proud of where you're from, and not in like a nationalist way, like, oh, we're better than everyone in Europe. That England's still a great place, and English people are great people, and we're a great community of people, and it's a positive message. Do you know what I mean? Not like a do you know what I mean? When it's a hard one to say without sounding like you're being like. And that's another thing that I find quite annoying. It's like, obviously the St. George flag is associated with a lot of racism, and I hate that. Do you know what I mean? Because I think being proud of where you're from is quite a sweet thing. You know what I mean? To be proud of my brothers and my sisters and my grandparents and a lot of the people who have worked really hard to make England a really special place. You know.
I completely understand where you're coming from. It almost feels like your position, your view of England, UK, and so on, has been hijacked to a degree where you almost have to be ashamed of it. I grew up. I'm not English. I am Irish, and I grew up stuff like that. And you were always led to believe you should be a little bit embarrassed about that sort of thing. It's only when you get older you can properly take a side. And it's interesting to say about things moving on. But that stance feels like that particular stance seems like it's always going to be around, be it in a negative or positive way. We are, as a country, England, the UK, a seething, boiling mass of ready to explode issues, whether it be from Brexit to anything else. You talk about things moving on quick. We spent 2 weeks obsessed with Dominic Cummings and then completely forgot about that. You don't write an album about that. But obviously...
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
It's everyone. You get a lot of people very annoyed about the Dominic Cummings things, and there's a load of people in the street protesting, and then there's so much stuff. I can't keep up with everything at the minute. Yeah, it's like what is going on? It's a crazy time. It really is a crazy time, and I don't know what to expect next. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, who knows what next is going to happen? Because at this point, I'm really not sure.
But if you can use even any part of that to inspire or take inspiration, and I don't think we're having this discussion, and I don't think it's fair or right to turn around and say, well, Phoxjaw is an overtly political band. Because that's certainly not what I got from it in any way, shape or form.
But to be honest, we had this discussion actually not too long ago about, because we've all got our own political opinions and things like that, but Phoxjaw, we don't feel is necessarily the place for that. Like, don't get me wrong, I know the guys from Idols, and we love Rage Against the Machine, and we love these bands that do that very well, and they've got a message, and cheerio, mate, like great stuff, you know. But Phoxjaw is more about escapism, and like I said, we were talking about the prog thing. There's a lot of fantasy themes in some of our music as well, and we like that. We like our music to be a place where people don't have to be screamed at like everyone else is all the time. I mean, if you don't want to hear that, you come and listen to Phoxjaw, because we just want to have a good time.
I love it, and you use fantastical, and it made me feel incredibly dreamlike. So I'm glad you're all on the same page in that, because you say there are plenty of bands that do that. If it's not your thing, there's no reason to do it.
That's it.
Have you been paying much attention to the feedback that you've received so far? Mainly from the singles, really, I guess. So is that something you pay attention to?
Yeah, we've got a few reviews come through as well, which have been really good. And we kind of struck gold with Peter the Roman doing the artwork as well. Like, that artwork is just incredible. I can't wait to have the vinyl, because I want to frame it and put it on my wall. Like, it's just such a beautiful piece.
It almost feels like, when I looked at it, it feels like you can touch it, like it's embossed. It's like it's embossed.
Yeah.
you know?
You want to touch it, don't you? It's incredible. He is amazing. I really recommend checking out his page if you've not. Peter the Roman, all one word, on Instagram.
Cool.
One of the best artists. Like, how we got him to do the album was, I just basically asked him. I was a huge fan of his work, and I just said, look, man, like, I'm a huge fan. Would you be interested in working with us? And he replied with, like, I'm a fan of Phoxjaw. I would absolutely love to. We negotiated, and obviously there was money discussed and that. But when he turned around and said he was a fan of the band, I was like, are you joking?
That's amazing. So back on the feedback thing, when you sort of look at the comments and Facebook and stuff like that, is it something you obsess over, or is it kind of like, oh, that's cool, and then put to the side?
I don't want to say I obsess about it. I mean, I'm interested. I do look at the comments sometimes on some of the YouTube videos, or I like to see how people are responding to it. But it's also interesting to see what some people take from it as well, because it's sometimes the opposite of what they're aiming for with it, and it's kind of interesting. I like that, though, how people can take a lot of different things out of my lyrics, you know?
Yeah. So you're a band, obviously, that has pretty much existed in the modern world of music streaming, YouTube, instant gratification. How do you, as a unit, I guess, and individually, handle the constant pressure to always be active in some way, whether you're having to update your Facebook and social media or put a video out regularly? You know, the way you've been doing with this album, where you've basically released 3 singles up to this point, with a 4th to come?
That's right. Yeah.
Hang
on, is that right? AAA, yeah, that's right. The 4th one comes out in a few days.
Yeah. So how do you handle that kind of like pressure to constantly be active? Is it something you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Josh, our guitarist and producer, one of the 2 brothers, he's very good at keeping us in check, you know, because me and Alex are the emotional, creative guys, you know. Josh is creative as well, don't get me wrong, but Kieran and Josh are more like practical guys, and they get stuff done. And our manager also is always on at us every week, you know, guys, we need content. And we've also got like 2 other versions of some of the songs on this album, AAA and Half House. We've got 2 other versions of them that are going to come out as well at some point that are really cool. There's like a really dark Sun Kill Moon atmospheric version of Half House. Ooh. And then there's like a real 60s, like almost like Paul Simon sounding version of AAA, which I personally kind of prefer to the actual original. Oh. But it's just the way the phrasing's really interesting in it. It's kind of it sounds a bit like The Police as well, which I quite like.
That sounds very, very exciting. And on that as well, like you talk about you having the pressure put out as well, but your label, Hassle Records, they've been really supportive, right?
They've been amazing, actually. Yeah. I've never worked with a record label before. I'd always self-released with my previous prog works and stuff like that. But they've been really sort of like supportive of what we've done. They've also given us advice, and whether we choose to take it. It's not like, hey guys, you're signed to us now, this is what you're doing. It's not like that at all. Everything's there's a really good sort of discussion that goes on between our manager, our PR team, our booking agents. There's a big group of us that work together, and everyone's the communication is just so good. Do you know what I mean? Like we get shit done, and that's really good, you know?
That's fantastic to hear, because as you say, particularly when it's your debut and you're signed to a label, and obviously nowadays there's so many different variations on labels as well. It's whether it not brings you that comfort or it just adds even more pressure to an already pressure-filled situation. But it seems like it's comfort for you guys. Yeah.
I think they give us a lot of creative control, because obviously they're an independent label as well. We've not been signed to a major at this point. Maybe we will one day. Who knows? But they're giving us a lot of. I mean, like when we did the album, they had some notes on them. I'm interested in what they said as well, because they are creative people, and Wes and Mies, the 2 guys that we work with a lot, they've got good taste and they know what they're talking about, you know. Like that's why I do take what they say into account, you know. But they do know that obviously as I'm a very strong creative energy in this band, like I decide a lot with what we look like and how we're going to present ourselves. They do trust me, which is really cool. I sort of say, look, guys, you trust me on this one. And they do, you know, so that's a really nice working relationship. I couldn't ask for more, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you are obviously clearly so creative and so dare I say, quite take a stance when you feel like you are correct, how that clashing would work. But as you say, if you're getting that great support, then it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever have to take a moment for yourself though, where you sort of step back and go, all right, maybe I'm being a little bit too much of a stance taker here?
Oh yeah, I can. If we were just speaking to the other guys in my band now, or especially my manager, I think he would agree with you that I can be very difficult at times. But that's what art's all about, you know. I'm not willing to say, oh yeah, let's just go with that. You know, it's got to be right, you know.
I feel like you're proving it as well with your creative outlet, and just on his debut album for Phoxjaw alone, certainly proves anything you want to say correct on that front, because it is such an accomplished release.
I'm really proud of it. I like I said there, it's like Royal Swan. I'm working on album 2 now. You know what I mean? And I'm just like so lost in that. That's exciting as well, mind. That sounds really good. What we've got really coming up with that.
Obviously, this is your PR part for Royal Swan, and it's like, nah, let's forget about that.
It's a good album. I'll give it that. It is a good album. It's got some. I love the intro on it as well. I love that. That was a loop that I created on my Boss looper.
Okay.
And yeah, I really like looping, and I think there's something really hypnotic and mesmerizing about a really dark loop. And I love how the album opens up with that orchestral vocals that we'd put over that. It's a cool track.
Did it enter your mind regarding it that you were kind of like, look, how do we want this to be consumed by someone who's listening to it? Obviously, you know, you have your individual tracks, but did you think, okay, consumption preferably would be someone sits down, closes the doors, windows, puts a pair of headphones on, and does it in one big sitting? Because that's kind of how I felt like it should be. Like, I wanted to consume it.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things when we were discussing with the label when the album was coming out, that they were sort of like, they wanted the album to be like bang, bang, like all the attention straight away to grab the listener. Where I was sort of like, this is like a 70s sounding album. It's all about the intro for me and not rushing into it as such. It's an album, like you said, it is for the vinyl to be stuck on. And that's why I think there's so much attention to the artwork and the way that we're presenting this album, because it's an album to be sat down and enjoyed as a piece, you know, like it really is a piece, like you'd stick Dark Side on, you know, like, or one of those great albums, you know, it's a real moment. And that's what I want to make, is good albums, you know.
You've actually done that. And aside from the upcoming album release, what moment in the band's existence so far, right, for you, made you maybe turn around and think, hell, we're actually kind of we might make it. Phoxjaw might make it, you know, which is no easy task these days. Has there been a moment?
When we signed to UTA, when we got the booking agent, I remember I was working on a job and I was jumping around in the back garden, and I found out because we're obviously very good friends with Black Peaks, and Black Peaks had we were on tour with Black Peaks, and they had mentioned to us about Christina and Sean. Sean Golden actually books for Post Malone as well.
Wow.
And I had a moment with Sean in London where he'd came to see us at what was that pub? I can't remember off the top of my head, but we played a pub. It was Old Blue Last. That's it.
Old Blue Last, yeah.
We played there, and after the gig, he sort of said to me, he was like, "You're a young Mike Patton," and I was just like, "Oh, thank you, man. I like Mike Patton."
Yeah, how do you respond to that?
And he's really into the band, and to have a name like that, really interested. And I mean, they got us that gig with Zach Wilde in Sweden on that boat, which was just like madness.
Wow,
that was a crazy show as well. We were midway through a tour, and we basically did like an all-nighter, without sleeping, and then got on a boat and then drank all night. Like, drank loads of long drink, which is a Scandinavian drink. You'll come across it if you're in Finland or Sweden. Long drink. It's like a grapefruit drink. Amazing. Yeah. We drank so much of that. And the next day, the boat was rocking, and we played with Candlemass. Ever heard of them?
Yeah, of course. Candlemass, amazing band.
Yeah, they were good. We were backstage with them. They were good. They were good fun.
Oh, that's amazing. That is such an incredible story. So what a moment. And it's something, as you say, you might have pulled an all-nighter because of how you had to get there. That's something you could never have turned down. Never.
Oh, that's it. It's like, it's kind of like when I'm traveling as well, mine. There's times when I'm traveling and I've got a 15-hour coach journey from this part of Cambodia to this part, whatever, and you don't sleep for most of it, and you wake up the next day and you're like, what's going on? But it's kind of all part of the adventure. And when you're in a touring band, there is going to be those moments. I mean, you got to try and get your sleep when you can, but it seems to be when we end up on tour, we're just in this kind of like crazy moment where we just want to enjoy every moment of it.
Well, yeah, because I think you're a realist as well, and that these opportunities can be fleeting. They don't always come around. And just look at right now. You couldn't tour even if you wanted to.
That's it. I am missing playing. I will say that as well.
That's what I'm going to ask you next. Then, what plans, if any, does Phoxjaw have for the remainder of 2020 and into 2021? Is there anything potentially set in stone, or is it all just penciled in and hoping?
I think we're going to do some live sessions of the albums with the guests that were involved on the album.
Okay.
We did have a tour booked for October, but that has been pushed back now, unfortunately.
Of course.
So that's just, we're waiting to see when that comes from. So I can't really guarantee anything with you just yet until that comes through. But also we've got a festival as well, Radar Festival at the end of the year, but whether that continues to go through as well. It's all very up in the air at the moment, you know what I mean?
Everyone says the same thing when we talk about future plans and tours, and it's almost like I can answer for you. I ask the question and answer, go, yeah, we'll see what happens, basically, because that is it. So you are obviously such a creative outlet when it comes to music. What do you do then when you're not making music? Because it seems the impression I'm getting from you is that you're never really not doing something musical. Do you ever
I do a lot of nights spend either on my guitar on the analog synths or playing with pedals, or I am writing a lot. But for example, this week I've not done any writing yet, and I'm trying to almost not write at the moment, because sometimes you do it a bit too much and you need to move away from it and then come back to it. I'm going to try and paint again this week because I've not painted in ages, and I've got this kind of urge to do some of that again.
Okay.
But I play games sometimes as well, you know, like just because that's good to just take myself away from the creativity as well and not think about being creative. I like to go for walks. I like to go through like the countryside in Bristol. Okay,
cool. So you say what games do you like to play then? Because that's one of our major subjects on the site.
Yeah. When it comes to games, I really like the classic Resident Evil games. Like I love the original Resident Evil, like the remake as well of the original Resident Evil is just like one of my favorite games of all time.
Absolutely.
Silent Hill as well, Silent Hill 2, that's a classic game.
So you like your horror games then, but it seemed a bit of a theme.
Yeah, I like Red Dead Redemption as well online. I play that online with a few of my friends. I quite like immersing myself in the Wild West.
Very immersive, yeah.
I like all sorts of stuff really. Like but I'm not like a proper gamer. It's more like just a escapism thing for me. I just like to turn it on and just get lost in it.
That's exactly what it's for. It's what gaming is for. Escapism, lose yourself for a couple of hours in whatever you're playing. That's I wish more people would see it that way.
Yeah.
Danny, we'll leave it there. Phoxjaw, Royal Swan's out on the 3rd of July by Hassel Records. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/GBHBL, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?